Hello and welcome to part one of the argumentative and or persuasive essays tutorial. So before you get started, you need to have some kind of purpose and you need to know your audience and you also need to know your topic. Now, I know most of you are going to say, well, the purpose of this essay is to provide an argumentative essay for my teacher because that's what they asked for. But we'll just disregard that. So we'll assume that you're writing the essay because you want to and it's fun, which is not. But in any case, you need to know your purpose. So you need to persuade someone to accept your point of view. So if they're sitting on the fence or they're unsure, then you're going to be writing a persuasive essay. If someone is on the other side of the fence and you're trying to convince them that your arguments are strong enough that it will bring them over to your side, then you're writing an argumentative essay. The audience, you need to know who your audience is. Normally it'll be your teacher, but if you're writing at the university level, it may be a magazine or your prof or your co-workers. So you need to know the audience because it will affect the tone of your essay and the level of diction. So the words that you choose and how you organize them. Sometimes you may talk to your friends in a certain way. You're not going to do the same way in an essay as you would writing to the Prime Minister, for example. So you need to modify your tone and level of diction, which is just the words that you choose. It will also affect the kind of rhetorical arguments that you employ, whether ethical, moral, or logical appeals are being used. So if you think that someone is being completely illogical about something, you're not going to try to get them to recognize that you're right by using logical appeals. You're probably going to use ethical or moral appeals to try and bring them over if you think that they're being illogical. So it depends on what the purpose of your essay is. And some of them can be more persuasive than others. Usually people think and act based more on their emotions and gut feelings than pure logic, but sometimes logic is helpful. So let's look at a couple possible structures for this. So I'm going to go over an example of an argumentative or persuasive essay in my next tutorial. So we're just going to look at the basic structure and I'll talk a little bit about advantages and disadvantages. So the first one, you have your introduction, which I covered previously. You'll have your first opinion and some supporting evidence to back it up. In the middle, so it's going to be sandwiched, are possible objections and counter arguments. So you're going to bring up a couple objections to whatever your point of view is. Let's say you think that all schools should have cafeterias that should be able to give out junk food, sell junk food. And then in the middle, you can cram in some objections and counter arguments and then throw in your second opinion and supporting evidence. This one should be your strongest argument, and then you're going to leave with a conclusion. The second possibility is you're going to start with your intro, and then you're going to throw down some common objections and counter arguments just to get them out of the way. So you'll bring them up, you'll smack them down, and then you go on to your own points. Okay? So then you'll have your first opinion, second opinion, and third opinion with supporting evidence for each one, and then you have your conclusion. I like this one because you get the arguing out of the way. This one can sometimes feel a little bit awkward. It's difficult to do very well. This one's a little bit easier. You get the objections in, you counter them right away, and then you throw down all your evidence and your conclusion. The third possibility is you start with your intro, give your first opinion and supporting evidence, and then you bring objections to that first opinion and counter those. Then you give your second opinion with evidence and counter the objections to that second opinion, and then you throw down your conclusion. Excuse me. So I think these ones are nice. This one especially if you're allowed more than 5 paragraphs. I know some teachers are keen on keeping exactly 5 paragraphs, but if you can have maybe 3 different topics and 3 paragraphs with objections and counter arguments, so that would be a total of 8 paragraphs because you'd have intro, first and objections, second objections, third objections, and conclusion. I think that would be quite strong, but it depends on your word count. This one you can kind of modify because you can have just intro, common objections and counter arguments, and then 1 or 2 paragraphs, or 3 or 4 or 5 paragraphs. This one is fine. Feels a little bit awkward to me, but again, it's going to depend on what your topic is, what your purpose is, and who you're writing it for. So, as I say at the bottom there, this is just a sampling of essay structures that you can use for these types of essays. You don't always need to bring up counter arguments or common objections. If you're writing a more persuasive essay, you might just avoid some of the common objections and just give 3 very strong points in favor of whatever you're writing about. So this is just a small sampling. So please don't say, well, I watched this video and Mr. Mullins said these are the only 3 structures that you can use. But you need an intro, conclusion, and a couple paragraphs with lots of evidence. Bringing up counter objections and counter arguments is usually good, especially if you're writing an argumentative essay. But again, speak with your teacher, advisor, whoever you're writing for, and then proceed from there. So that's your basic outline for writing a persuasive or argumentative essay. In the next tutorial, part 2, I'm going to be giving an example of an argumentative essay using one of these on a certain topic, and we're going to talk a little bit about diction and tone and some of those things. So that's it for now, and thanks for watching.